Welcome back to AgriTalk here in San Diego at the American Veterinary Medical Association. Joining us now is Dr. Mark Lutschaunig. He is the director of AVMA's Government Relations Division, and seems like everybody's weighing in on the Farm Bill that we're still waiting on. And Mark, including AVMA, you have a position, things that you would like to see in this Farm Bill?
Oh, sure. We have a number of initiatives that we'd like to see in this Farm Bill, and actually, in both the Senate passed version and the House committee passed version, we were very pleased that our initiatives were in both of those bills. Unfortunately, it looks right now that it might not get done this year. It might be pushed off for a year, depending on who you talk to. You know, some of the things that we like to see are, the reauthorization of the Veterinary Medicine Loan Repayment Program, which is a program that provides loan repayments for veterinarians who work in underserved areas. We know there are areas of the country that it's very difficult to get veterinary services, especially in rural areas. This program has been very successful to date. We've had about 130 veterinarians that have participated in the program. We're in the third cycle of the program, which is excellent. But we'd like to see that reauthorized, and in both the Senate passed bill and the House committee passed bill, that program was reauthorized. There's a sister or a companion bill to that was actually, the language was put in both the Senate version and the House committee passed version that would provide grants to veterinarians who work in underserved areas for anything from buying equipment to use for continuing education. And there's a whole array of things that they can use these, and it's a matching grant program that they can use these grants to help sustain their practice in those rural areas. Because what's happening now is veterinarians are coming out of veterinary school. Their average debt is now above $140,000. And they're going to these rural areas. They would love to practice large animal medicine. They go to these rural areas and they cannot sustain a practice, and they cannot pay off that debt. And so if we can do some little things to help them with that debt and also to help them sustain their practices, the hope is that they'll go through the loan repayment program, they'll establish roots, they'll establish a family, and remain in those areas where they can provide services to to producers.
Those are key things. I think a lot of times when we look at food production, there are a lot of things that get taken for granted. But especially when you get tough economic times and you talk about budget cuts, a couple of areas that do get really overlooked, the importance of research being one, and another area would be training of the professionals that you need in that system, such as veterinarians. And these are key factors that I think a lot of times we just take for granted that there'll be a veterinarian there or there'll be another one come along, and that's not necessarily going to happen unless we take steps to make sure there's help for those people to get into the profession and be in those areas where they're needed.
And that's correct. And the veterinary schools we only have 28 in the United States. Over the past couple of years, they've taken huge hits to their budgets. And as a result, we've seen some increases in tuition, and I think all that feeds into the increase in debt. And then as students get that increase in debt, they have a fairly big loan repayment on a monthly basis. So again, it's that vicious cycle. It's very hard for them to go into those areas and to sustain a practice. Research is another area that we are. There is not enough money spent on agricultural research, and from our perspective, there's not enough money spent on animal agricultural research. So we're supporting the reauthorization of AFRI in the Farm Bill. It's authorized at $700 million, but it's never gotten over $270 million. And not only that, USDA has put some priorities that we feel they really need to shift a tiny bit into making animal agriculture research more of a priority for those AFRI research funding. So we're not only supporting the reauthorization of AFRI, but we're also supporting language that would put more of an emphasis on animal agriculture research.
And when we talk about, there's so much discussion and debate and concern about food safety, that gets back to the importance of having experts in the field. There's trained veterinarians out there, a key link in this chain.
Absolutely, and the animal agriculture is going through a lot of changes. There's a lot of threats. whether it's gestation crates or antimicrobial use, or we need to have experts like veterinarians on the farm talking to the producers, talking to them how to judiciously use antimicrobials, how to do other things with their animals to keep them healthy, how to promote their welfare, all of which has been you've talked about in the past hour. Without veterinarians on the farm, animal health and welfare will suffer long term. That's, the producers do an absolutely great job of taking care of their animals, but we really need to get the experts to work with them to continue that improvement so that we can feed, the 9 billion people in the world by 2050.
So it's not just, in this issue of getting veterinarians to parts of the country that need them most, especially, say, large animal veterinarians. There's kind of been the thinking that, well, it's easier to go to small animals. It's easier because you can go to bigger urban areas, make more money, and that's where it's going to be attractive for young people to get started in their practices. So what you're pointing out here is, even if somebody wants to go to a rural area and be in a large animal practice, the economics may not be there for them to be able to do that. So it's not just them choosing where they want to go, it's where they have to go because to meet the financial obligation.
And that's correct. And I've been in D.C. for 9 years, and even before that, I call it the suburbanization of the country. So what we're seeing is folks are moving further and further away from their rural roots, further and further away from the farm. We're even seeing that with members of Congress who are coming out now, and they're generations away from the farm, and in a lot of cases don't understand animal agriculture or plant agriculture. You can go look at either one. We see that in a profession where, 20, 30 years ago, we'd get veterinary students that would come off the farm, go to veterinary school, and then their desire was to go back to their areas to work in that area as a veterinarian. And because of the changing economics, because of the generational changes and things like that, we're not seeing that as much. So there's a lot of things going on. But I do know, I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of veterinary students, and there are many veterinary students out there who tell me, we would love to go practice either large animal medicine or mixed animal medicine. But when we look at the economics, when we get out of school with the kind of debt that we're getting out of, it's just not economically feasible for us to do that. And that's a problem. And then it even goes further down the road as veterinarians get older and as they want to retire, these rural practitioners, as they want to retire and sell their practice, they're having difficulty selling their practice because they can't find younger veterinarians that want to come in and are able to work and sustain that practice, again, to pay off the student debt, to have a family and everything that goes along with a family. So there's a lot of issues that the profession right now is working to address, again, to help bring more veterinary services to rural areas.
So hopefully there'll be some help in the Farm Bill whenever they get that wrapped up. Mark, thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it. And then just to put it in perspective, back in the last Farm Bill, it took them a little while to get that passed as well. So we hopefully, I'm hoping maybe in the lame duck session we'll see something pass.
That's going to do it from the American Veterinary Medical Association Convention in San Diego. Thanks for joining us on AgriTalk.